Happy Friday. I know, we're excited too. But we're excited more. It's not just that it's Friday. We have a special guest today, and I've talked to you about that a little bit this week. At this time, I want to just remind you that there are more audience members than just right here. We are live streaming to not just our Royal community, but technically could be to the world. So we're pretty excited about that. Welcome to our distinguished guests. I want to, at this time, turn this over to Dr. Borf, and he's going to introduce our day.
Thank you. Nice to be among the Royals again. I would like to thank Mrs. Omer for making this possible, coordinating some of the efforts that it took to make this happen. I'd also like to thank Dr. Stokes for being with us today and overseeing this district as your new superintendent. I think it's great that she can be with us. I want you to know that we started at Fishers High School, and she was wearing red over there. Look at this, a transition. There are other introductions to take place, but I'm going to let some other people do that. I want to start by saying, though, that when you got up to come to school today, I'm sure you probably went to the sink, turned that spigot on, and water emerged, and you didn't think anything about it. That doesn't happen all over the world. And we have some speakers today who will talk about an experience or experiences in their country, Sierra Leone. where there have been many, many efforts and measures to make water possible. And I'd like to talk just a little bit about why today is happening. The Rotary International has a local chapter here in Fishers. The Fishers Rotary Club is part of an international group of clubs that address problems and situations throughout the world. The Fishers Club has made a special effort to direct a lot of its work towards providing wells in Sierra Leone. And according to Tom Branham, who has been helping to coordinate that with the Fishers Rotary. Tom, would you raise your hand here? According to Tom today, we have 155 wells that we have provided or helped make possible in Sierra Leone to provide water for many, many people. This is one of the efforts that we do that provides an international focus. We also provide, as a service organization here in Fishers, we do different projects. We have a community garden that provides fresh produce for some of the local food pantries. We have a group of individuals who meet regularly to provide ramps for people who need handicap assistance at their homes. So it's a service organization, and I want to emphasize how important it is that young people see the opportunities as well as the benefits of serving their community. And as this world becomes closer and closer, the world is our community. And it's important to focus on how we can better serve the people with whom we live in our community, both here and abroad. Now, I'm going to turn this over for another special introduction, and I'm going to turn this over to Chelsea Murdoch, who will introduce our speaker.
Thanks, guys. Hi, everybody. So like Dr. Borf said, for those of you who don't know, hello, my name is Chelsea Murdoch, and I'm a junior here at HSC. So I'm just going to do a brief introduction for y'all. So yeah. Allow dissatisfaction to fuel action. Now, when thinking about this statement, you can probably think of an instance in which this mantra was applied to your life. Whether it was your dissatisfaction in what your mom made for dinner that night that fueled you to take action and order Jimmy John's, or maybe the dissatisfaction in the equity of a school system fueled you to take action in order to make a change. Although very different in caliber and extremity, the principle remains the same. Do not remain stagnant in your displeasure. Instead, allow that displeasure to push you to make the change necessary to improve your environment. And essentially, that's something we all should live by. Ivana Key Sawyer, mayor of Freetown, Sierra Leone, is the epitome of this quote. As the mayor of Freetown, an area, for reference, is synonymous to size as that of metropolitan Indianapolis, Mayor Key Sawyer has made a major impact on her community, to the point of her being being in discussions to be a potential presidential candidate for her town in the next election. Now, Mayor Key Sawyer's initiative to plant 1 million trees in her city is guaranteed to change lives and replenish her community. As the mayor of Freetown, she's also taken many strides towards clean water. Similarly, the Fishers Rotary Water is Life project is estimated to benefit over 350,000 people, totaling over $1.5 million in contributions. Our very own students here have contributed to this, and 155 villages, and estimated to be thousands of people, are alive today due to these contributions here in both Fishers and in Sierra Leone. So, peers, colleagues, administrators, and community members, I thank you for your attentiveness and for laughing at my Jimmy John's joke. However, no laughter is needed for our speaker, as thunderous applause is much more deserving of her excellence. So please join me in welcoming and giving a very warm welcome to the Mayor of Freetown, Mayor Ivana Key Sawyer.
Thank you. I don't think there's anything that is sort of more of an honor than having your TED Talk quoted back to you. But the bit about the presidential candidate, you're going to get me in trouble. No, don't worry. It's only live streaming all over the world. Good morning, everyone. And it is a real honor and pleasure to be here at your school today and to have the opportunity to speak to you about, well, what the Rotary Club is doing, some of my journey, some of what you so eloquently portrayed in terms of dissatisfaction. Is that takeaway a particularly famous one? Okay. So when you're not satisfied with dinner at home, that's what you all do. Yeah? Jimmy John's got that. Okay. I'm not going to be talking about Jimmy John's, but I am going to be talking a little bit more, perhaps, about things which are dissatisfaction, perhaps on a wider level, just so that I get a sense of who's in the room. I know environmental science students are here. Can I have a show of hands who in the room is doing something environmentally related? Okay. Those of you who are not, what is it that you do that's connected, or what's your reason for being here, other than the principal said come? Can someone just throw out to me, are you studying anything which you think may be connected so I kind of know and can gauge? Yes? Women, okay. Women up. Fantastic, okay, great. UNICEF Club, okay. Any others on this side? Mm-hmm. Asian Student Union. Key Club, what's that? Okay, all right. So some on the environment, some women empowerment, some diversity. And with that, I think what I'll do is tell you a little bit about my story, come on to the link between the work that we're doing on climate in Freetown and Freetown's own journey, and how that ties in with the fantastic work that's being done with the Fishers Rotary right here in your city, and the impact that makes. And I think that will allow us all to see that no matter where you are, no matter what the challenge is, overwhelming as it can be, we all have an opportunity to make a difference. Jimmy John's, bigger things, climate action, change is change. My name is Yvonne Akisoro, as we've said. I probably was sitting where you're sitting so long ago that I don't remember now. I say I'm old, and I'm told I'm old with my kids, but the leadership journey that I'm on started when I was your age. I was head girl at my school. I did sports. I'm sure there are people in the room who can identify with that. Sports people? Yes. These are all opportunities for leadership. I then went on post-grad, worked, and I think where I am today, this opportunity to stand and speak to you, is because throughout that journey, I did something that I know for sure many of you do every day without thinking about it. And I stepped up when there was a challenge, when I was dissatisfied, when things weren't going the way I felt they should. I stepped forward, not on my own, because I never believed that leaders work on their own. To get things done, you need to work with other people. So I worked with other people to solve problems. Those problems included, at the time of the war in Sierra Leone, campaigning against the trade in blood diamonds. It also led to me starting a not-for-profit for children, which is now 22 years old. And then when the Ebola outbreak happened, and it does feel like we had a very dramatic history, because you're thinking, none of this ever happens in Fishers. But it doesn't need to be high drama. It could be anything, because Fishers will have its own problems. Your school will have things about it that you're not satisfied with. Your community, your society, your friendship groups. So in my case, it was a little bit of kind of headline news. Ebola outbreaks don't happen every day, everywhere, thankfully. But with the Ebola outbreak, I stepped forward and I got involved. I literally got on a plane and went to Freetown at a time when the planes were all full, coming in the other direction. And that decision to do something opened up opportunities to do more. And that's one of the interesting things about leadership. One of the interesting things about female leadership, that when you step forward, you can make a difference because you work with others with the determination to fix something and change something. And inevitably, it gives you more opportunities to do more. So post the Ebola outbreak, I was asked to lead the economic recovery program for the country. I actually do have some qualifications. I'm not just like doing all this stuff. I did study some of this stuff. And then in that position, I saw government face to face like I hadn't done before, and realized that some of the challenges of my city could be fixed if we just were able to introduce some more systems, some structures, and so forth. Two challenges that were particularly on my mind were sanitation and environmental degradation. So, a little bit of background and intro. Now back to you. Does anyone know where Freetown is? Okay. Oh, there's a hand. Okay, you're doing well. Sierra Leone. Now, does anyone know where Sierra Leone is? Yes? We're doing very well. We're doing very well. So, I want to paint a picture for you of what my city looked like when I was growing up and what my city looks like today. So, I grew up in Freetown, which is in Sierra Leone, but specifically, picture this, it's nestled between a range of mountains and the Atlantic Ocean, and it's really beautiful. And growing up, all I had around me was trees and streams and rivers. And actually, the taps opened and we got water. Where was the tap opened and we got water? And it was some of the best water you could get from the Gouma Valley reservoir. But the impact of the war that I mentioned and the impact of poor management, particularly the war though, led to that beautiful, pristine childhood vision and experience that I had being devastated. Two things really point to that, or really impacted that. When there's war, and wars can sound quite distant and quite dry and just like a word on a piece of paper. But wars are nothing like that. They are damaging, devastating, destructive, and they destroy not just people's lives at the time the war is happening, but for decades to come. It also can really destroy moral fabric. So we had massive destruction during the war, and then we had a further consequence of people fleeing the war and coming to the capital city. And because of a lack of development control, those beautiful green hills began to disappear. And the deforestation was one of those challenges that I saw. To address them, and here comes a woman point. To address them, I felt, having been in that role I was telling you about, the post-Ebola recovery, leading that in that leadership position, being in touch with government, seeing what I could feel were the gaps, I came to this and thought, okay, we can fix this. I didn't actually plan to run for mayor. And that's another thing about leadership. You find yourself sometimes in places that you don't anticipate. We were working on a project to improve sanitation. And it was a Tuesday, the 23rd of May. And I was in a room with a bunch of people in the sector explaining the plan of how we're going to do it, with me as a consultant, not as government. And a friend who has been in the sector, in the sanitation sector, waste management, came up to me and said, you know, since you've been in this office, we've had more progress than we've been able to make in the last 10 years. You can't stop now, Yvonne. You've got to run for mayor. And I laughed. You know that kind of laugh when you're like, ha, 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 you must be crazy. I totally was like, no. I don't do this. I'm in the private sector. I'm not involved in government. But I went home that night, and this I want you to think about, because sometimes this is how big decisions happen in your life. I went home that night thinking about it. I woke up the next morning, and I called my husband and said, Amy said she thinks I should run for mayor. And you know what? I'm thinking about it. As I drove to work that day, it's funny how I saw the city with a totally different lens, or through totally different lenses. I kept looking around and going, I'd fix that. I'd change that. I'd do that. By the time I got to my office, I was totally pumped. And I called my husband, I was like, I'm running for mayor. Challenge, of course, is we'd never had an elected female mayor. I wasn't a member of a political party, and the election was 9 months away. So a little bit of a challenge, but with a great team and determination and a real sense of what was possible, we were able to do it. And I pulled in more votes than both presidential candidates, because it's done on the same day as the presidential elections, mainly because I had women voting for me from all across the different party divides. So became the mayor, first female mayor, the city's elected female mayor the city's ever had, and the first female leader in 40 years. And thank you. And we have demonstrated the power of women leadership, because it's been inclusive, it's been collaborative, and it's been transformative. It's not been without its challenges. Because climate change, I started off by talking about the deforestation. That's what was going on, or is going on at a local level. But we all know that climate change is not just a local problem, it's a local problem, but it's also a global problem. And a lot of what is driving climate change is not happening in a small city like Freetown or in a small country like Sierra Leone. It's happening in the countries who emit the most, including here in the United States. But the impact is being felt very severely in places like Freetown, in other parts of the global south, where the weather patterns are already really erratic. On the 14th of August, 2017, about 2 months after I made that decision and had that drive back to the office and thought, I'm going to do this, at 6 a.m. that morning, 14th August 2017, I got a call from one of my ex-neighbors. I had just moved house 3 weeks earlier, and where I used to live had been 2 doors from where a massive landslide had just happened. 1,000 people were buried under the mud, lost their lives in less than 3 minutes. And that landslide followed 3 days of rain, which saw us have a month's worth of rain in those 3 days. That's climate change. And that pattern is being seen in Bangladesh, in South Sudan, and the rainfall, the flooding in China, just up the road from here in Linton, British Columbia, the fires, the extreme heat this summer. Did anybody follow that? Environmental management students, did you guys see that? In Greece, in Italy, climate change is real and climate change is here. So what we're doing in Freetown is addressing some of the existing ongoing issues through our Transform Freetown agenda, which covers from environmental management to water to sanitation, health, urban mobility, education. But this morning, I'm really pleased that we are here with Fishers, where there's an intersection between our water targets and our climate action. And the specific climate action, which I think you guys would be interested in, is our project to plant 1 million trees. My city is called Freetown, and that project is called hashtag Freetown, the Tree Town. And in planting 1 million trees, we are not just committed to planting, but to growing. Growing 1 million trees means we ensure that every tree is tagged. It has a unique identifier number. We have an app, a tree tracker app, which is custom made so that every tree is followed. We employ over 600 young people as tree growers, and we involve the whole city. Anybody can be a tree steward. So anybody can plant a tree. We do tree giveaways across the city 2-3 times a year. But the most significant planting gets done by our tree growers within communities. We plant on the hillsides, we plant along the coast, we plant along waterways to protect water catchment areas to ensure that water shortages are reduced. We can plant in schools, in cemeteries, in public spaces. To date, we launched on the 3rd of January 2020 at a big event. So the ball is tomorrow night. There's a charity ball. I don't know if any of you are coming. Don't know. Might be a bit boring. Yeah. If I was you, well, no. I didn't say that. Didn't say that. But there's a ball tomorrow, a fundraising ball for Water is Life. And this is how we kicked off Freetown, the Tree Town. On the 3rd of January 2020, we held a big ball, the Mayor's Ball, at a hotel in Freetown, and kicked off our 1 million tree campaign without a single penny in the bank. We are really thrilled because when you have a big vision, you can do big things even when you start from zero. And I can report to you today that we've been able to plant 557,000 trees at a cost of over $1.8 million, and the money came. Small money came that night. About $35,000 was raised on the night. As the weeks and months went on, we pitched to the World Bank, and we've raised over $1 million from the World Bank. And as we continue to move forward, we've had amazing support. Two, I think, are worth noting, because this is the power of us. This is the power of together, of ideas. One of them was a woman whose dad is Sierra Leonean. She hasn't lived in Sierra Leone for years. I don't think she's actually ever lived in Sierra Leone. And she decided that she was going to support us. And she set up a not-for-profit here called Transform Freetown, Inc. She lives in the U.S., I think in New York. And she has been able to raise over $30,000. It's not small. It's small vis-a-vis 1.8 million. But as an individual saying, I want to help, and I'm going to do something, it is massive. So big shout out to Britta, who just might be watching this on live stream. And then the other person that I think is really worth mentioning is a fashion designer, a Sierra Leonean fashion designer based in the UK, who decided to use his clothing label, Finner X, to support our sustainability plan. So you can now buy one of his t-shirts or his hats that say Freetown, the Tree Town, and each one, for every sale, there's an investment into not just planting another tree, but monitoring the growth of an existing tree. And with the QR code on the label, you're actually able to track your tree. So the collective has really meant we've been able to move forward. And in the coming weeks and days, we are expecting announcements from competitions that we've entered into, which will probably pay for the next 450,000 trees. So Freetown, the Tree Town, is our contribution as a city towards addressing some of the climate change impacts, the landslides, the mudslides, the extreme temperature, because trees, we all know, are lungs. They also keep that ground from giving way, and they also ensure that the water that comes from the sky doesn't just run off, but gets into the ground, so that the water reservoirs that we need for water in the city are also protected. Today we're here because that intersection between Rotary Fishers and Rotary Freetown has now brought Freetown the Tree Town and Transform Freetown and the mayor's agenda all together. And as I stand speaking to you, I don't know what your specific challenges are that you're interested in from a climate or any other perspective. But what I do know is that each one of you has the ability and the potential to be a significant change agent. And I want to encourage you to not allow your dissatisfaction to just stay in your heart or in your head, but to take a step, maybe 2 steps, engage with others, and change that dissatisfaction into an action that will change whatever it is that's affecting you eventually, but your society, your city, and that's how we collectively make this world a better place. So thank you for your time, and I wish you guys all the very best in whatever it is you're doing.
First of all, I just want to say we are honored by your presence, but we are truly inspired by your story. Thank you. Does anyone have any questions that they'd like to ask this morning? It's right here.
I asked if you want to expand your efforts to other places in Sierra Leone and how you plan to do that.
Thank you very much. So similar to what you have, we also have mayors and local authority, heads of local authority councils in other parts of the country. And it's not, Freetown the Tree Town is being projected in Sierra Leone. We recently had a meeting to which we invited, I think about 7 or 8 other mayors and chairpersons, and the focus was on extreme heat, because that's another impact of climate change and global warming, that we're experiencing really rising temperatures. And when you already live in a hot country, you know, sort of having the kind of extreme heat that we're facing is life-threatening. So we're doing that through collaboration. We have our first Chief Heat Officer. There she is. She was appointed, Eugenia Kirkber was appointed just about a month and a half ago. We're proud that she's Africa's first ever Chief Heat Officer. And we're working with the Ash Rockefeller Resilience Center to actually make sure that some of these initiatives, such as Freetown the Tree Town, are scaled. We also have the advantage of being part of an organization called C40 Cities, which was until very recently chaired by Mayor Gassetti of LA. He's just handed over to Mayor Sidi Khan of London. I'm the vice chair, and that means that we have a platform of cities around the world where we're able to share our initiatives and, you know, sort of work together to learn the best, share best practice. So Freetown the Tree Town is getting airtime, and thankfully we are able to work with others to share that, as we learn from others as well.
Okay, yeah, that is working. What's the toughest part of what you do?
Okay, I need to know the joke first. Okay. Okay, the toughest part of what I do, I would definitely say that when I came out, my background is in the private sector. I've been in consulting my whole career. So when you normally have a consulting challenge, you go into a company or you're in a situation you have a lot of control as the consultant. You come in with your problem definition, you do the theory of change, you engage with the management, and then because they're paying you to do this and the company actually wants it to succeed, most people, you will always have resistance to change, but most people are on board. And if they're not on board, there's a mechanism to try and get them on board because the company's paying money for this work to be done. Politics, totally different. My biggest challenge is politics. My biggest challenge is that there are often obstacles put in the way of good work being done that have nothing to do with the work, that have nothing to do with improving the lives of people, that's actually about the political differences between the city government and the national government at one level, and then the other really big challenge that was a surprise for me was I knew you would always have resistance to change, but I didn't appreciate the extent to which a city council could be an establishment in its own right. This is the way we always did it. You're not coming here and changing it. And those are the biggest challenges. But let me just add to your question and say, what's the biggest inspiration for me? The people of Freetown. The way the people have gotten behind Transform Freetown. Just now when we were at the with the Rotary Club, Rotarian Christo, who I don't see very often, and we're both from Sierra Leone, but we sort of live different lives, but I know him. He got up and said he was at one of the tree giveaways. He has 4 trees that he took, and they're this high now. Like, fantastic. And the fact that all over the city, there are people who caught the vision, not just for Freetown, the Tree Town, not just about planting trees, whether it's about the nurseries we're building in the markets, whether it's about the water projects that we're doing with Fishers, with Rotary or others, whether it's about our sanitation improvements. The biggest blessing, what keeps me going, what inspires me, is the difference we're making in the lives of ordinary people and their excitement about being a part of it. Thank you for the question.
I know I've been inspired by what you said, and I think I can speak on behalf of all the women in this room that we've all been inspired to take leadership positions from what you've spoke on today. So I want to ask you if, after you earned your position as mayor, you have found an increase in women trying to take more leadership positions in your town or in the country of Sierra Leone.
Thanks. So I'm one of 4 girls. My parents only had girls. And when we were growing up, I remember people saying to my dad, so this probably wouldn't happen here, but we're a very patriarchal society in Sierra Leone. And people would say things like, hey, I'll say this in Creole, hey, you're not born boy Pekin, you don't have any boys. Like, you failed. And my dad would say, what boys can do, my girls can do. He had no sense whatever of limiting us. So from a very early age, I was as confident as anybody that there was nothing that I could not do. There was no male child in my home who was being given privileges that I was deprived of. So that's how I grew up. And then I worked most of my life out of Sierra Leone. When I came to Sierra Leone, when the election was, like we're going through the campaign, people kept saying to me, do you think that a woman can do this job? And I was surprised because I was, in my head, like, why is that even an issue? Once I became the mayor, I could understand why they were asking me that question. Because people's attitudes were very, were biased. There was an expectation, an assumption that you were limited because you were a woman. And then when you were doing really well, they'd be like, you're not really a woman, you're a man. I'm like, that's not very complimentary. So to your question, do I feel that more women have stepped forward since I took this role? I'm going to use an anecdote to answer you. About a year ago, my secretary came in, it's more than a year, maybe 2 years ago. My PA came into my office and said, there's someone here who wants to see you, and you really, really need to let her see you. And it's like, how could you do that? It's not in the diary. She's like, no, Mayor, you need to see her. And I agreed. And in comes this 4-year-old girl, and I'm not dressed, this is not my traditional, normally I wear my traditional outfits to work every day. So she's dressed like me in the traditional long skirt and the top, 4. And her mom is with her, and she says that they have dress-up day at school. You get to be somebody, and she chose to be the mayor. And she really wanted me to see her, but then what she wanted to do was to say something and ask me a question. I said, okay, I'm listening. She then went on to recite my whole CV. And she said with a beaming smile at the end, who am I? For me, that sums it up. The fact that there are 3-year-old, 4-year-old girls in Freetown, in Sierra Leone now, that there are young women at university, that there are girls at school who see Mayor Akisoy and go, I can be mayor. In fact, they go beyond me because they say, I can be anything, and that's absolutely right. So it wasn't something that I planned. It wasn't in my consciousness because I was just doing what I felt I needed to do. But definitely a really beautiful consequence of this has been that I believe, by God's grace, I have enabled and empowered more young women and older women who were already doing stuff and going, actually, why was I holding back? I'm not holding back anymore. And I've been in the news a lot because it's been a challenge. I've faced a lot of obstacles, and so it's been reported a lot. And one of my biggest support bases has been women coming together, coming behind me, putting on their Facebook pages, we stand with Mayor Akisoy, we stand with her as a woman.
So at this time, I believe we have a student presentation. So if I could invite those students up, please. Let's give a final round of applause. Thank you. So at this time, it's time to head back to 6th period. Oh. You guys were wonderful. Have a great day.